Hey there, how you doing? Welcome to the channel. Hey, so today I was just gonna make a video. There's quite a few people out there in the YouTube universe that are having some issues like understanding the initial and continuing claims. And so basically, I just want to talk about that for a little bit in this video. Okay, so there's we've had this situation where we've had a lot of initial claims, even after the cerveza sickness, where we had the spikes and millions of initial claims on a weekly basis, and that's even dropped off, but it is persistently hanging very high. And I think this creates a lot of confusion because people seem to think, well, if you had an initial claim, that means that that's the first time that you filed for unemployment. And yes, that's true, but that doesn't mean that you were unemployed the whole time. So let's go ahead and let's go figure this out. Okay, so I'm going to go over here, stop sharing, and I'm going to share. We are going to go to Investopedia over here, and we're going to share this guy. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to start with continuing claims. What is the definition of continuing claims? And this is from Investopedia. So from this article here, what are continuing claims? Continuing claims are the number of people filing for unemployment benefits who have already filed an initial claim. In order to be included in continuing claims, the person must be covered by unemployment insurance and currently receiving benefits. They must have been unemployed for at least a week after filing for the initial claim, per the Department of Labor. Okay, so let's think about this for a minute. So you must have been unemployed for a week, at least a week before filing. And what will happen is, so there's this thing where, you have to be unemployed for a week and then you can file. Now, what happens is continuing claim data refers to unemployed people who have already filed a claim and who are continuing to receive weekly benefits. Continuing claims are not a leading indicator of state unemployment, meaning they cannot predict changes in the market, but they are a good snapshot of the market, right? So here's the thing. So like, for example, I was unemployed for part of the year. And what happened for me is in California, and what happens is you file an initial claim, and then after that, you have to certify, and they send you this little, a notification, and you log in and you have to certify every week. And what's interesting about it is, well, if you get a job, what you do is you just stop certifying your unemployment, and you just roll off in that way. So the continuing claims are those where people have already filed and they're continually unemployed. But the question is, what's an initial claim? So at some point, let's say I work for a month, and then let's say, I find a job for a month, and then I get laid off from that job and I have to file unemployment again. The key question is, how big a gap is it between the point where I had stopped continuing claims and started in another initial claim? And that's where we need to look in here and see if we can figure out what that is. Because what's happening when you look at the initial claims numbers, there's no possible way, things are bad, but there's no possible way. There's 740,000 people that had a long-term job before, like had been working for a year at their employer and newly lost their job that week. It's not possible. What's more likely is you have 740,000 people that are filing a new claim. They had worked for some period of time in the last, whatever that is going to be, the last 2 weeks or whatever, and they had to file again because they got laid off again. So when you look at the initial unemployment claims, what you're seeing is you're seeing very often the same person being counted multiple times. Now, let's look through here if we can figure out if they have a definition of like what the minimum amount of time employed needs to be before you file an initial claim and it's not continuing. Okay, let's see if they help us with that. So here I am on the Department of Labor site, and I'm looking at one of their reports for initial, and they have a definition here. So this is how the Department of Labor comes up with this. An initial claim is a claim filed by an unemployed individual after a separation from an employer. The claimant requests now, so they're making a request now after a separation from an employer. Okay, so this really is the key thing that I'm trying to point out. If, like I said, if I go and I'm working at company A and I get laid off, I file an initial claim for unemployment. Let's say I'm on unemployment for 4 weeks. Then, so let's see, that's one initial claim, and then I have 4 weeks of continued claims, right? Filed. And then let's say I get a job and I start working for company B. Okay, now I'm working for company B and I work there for 2 months, let's say. And then it's like, oh, I got laid off again. Well, by this definition, if initial claim is a claim filed by an unemployed individual after a separation from an employer, okay, so that this is company B, this is a separate employer. So this is not a continuing claim. This is now another initial claim. Now, the initial claims are, I guess they're separated by a week. So I need to think about that. But you have to wait a week before you can file. So I think what that sort of implies, either I need to do the math, but either separation a minimum 1 week or 2 week. So you can imagine if you're a person that's like, okay, you're just going from job to job and you're struggling to find a job. I mean, you could have is what 52 weeks in the year. I mean, you could go work a week, unemployment, work a week, unemployment, work a week. You could probably bounce back and forth. I don't know if you could do it that fast, but you could literally have 25 initial unemployment claims in there. So this is kind of the key thing that you kind of need to keep in mind here. So when you're looking at the initial claims numbers, you got to stop thinking about it as like, oh, these are people that have been working for some long period of time and now they're getting laid off. What it really is, it's churn. That's what it is. It's churn. People, unfortunately, there's a group of people which has gotten larger for sure. And they are basically in this churn where they're able to find a job for a while, do some work, and then they get laid off again. And then they're like on unemployment, and then they find a job again, and then they get unemployment. So that really is what's going on. So when you look at the initial claims here, yeah, so if we look here at the initial claims chart, and we're going to look kind of focus in the last year or so here where we had all these problems. Okay. And yeah, so if we look here, so here we had the CV lockdown started happening. We're up to like 6-7 million weekly unemployed. And then, currently we're at 712,000. And so the point is that this is persistent, right? This is persistent unemployment. This is like, our average level back here was 200,000, 300,000 unemployed per week, initial claims. And now we're just kind of averaging out. We're starting to drop down again. Maybe it'll get a little better. That's good. But, we're kind of leveling out at 700,000. So that's not good. But once again, this is on a weekly basis. So it's not like 700 or 800,000 people like that had been employed for 5 years at a company just got laid off that week. That's not what it is. There's a pool of people that are a larger pool that are cycling through the initial claims. They're able to get a job, work for a period of time, and then they're losing it again. And then the same thing is happening like that. So this kind of explains why I know I'm hearing some people like out there, and they're just kind of confused. The numbers can't be right. The numbers can't be right because, like, obviously, if I do what's called an integral and I just sum all these values, I have more than population than the U.S. or more working age population, right? So it doesn't make any sense. But what makes sense is that, this is a group of people that are, they're able to find some work and then they lose their job again and that kind of thing. And I think if you look at what's happened, at least anecdotally in the economy, that's the kind of thing that you could see. So I think that's important to keep in mind. Now, one of the negative things and the thing to really keep in mind, well, there's a lot of damage here. Like if you look at it before this, we were like, 200,000 initial claims kind of all the time. So like I'll zoom out here and you can see, you had higher unemployment, 400, 500, but we've been for a long time in the 300,000 unemployment rate, initial claims filing. And now we're kind of stabilizing at a point of 700,000. So that's not really a good sign. That's very unfortunate, because what it means is that if this continues, and it's going to continue for a while, but what unfortunately it means is there's a larger pool of people. Like if you went back in this time and there's 200,000 people, yes, there's companies that are making decisions and layoffs and all that stuff, and people have been working there for a long time, but a big chunk of it is the churn of a certain group of people that are in an industry where they're just constantly getting laid off, whether it's an industry that's cyclical and they have regular planned layoffs, or it's a group of people, unfortunately, that just are only able to get work in something that just doesn't last that long, or they're in a situation where they're really struggling with trying to hold down a job. So I think that's it for this one. So in summary, we got to keep initial claims in perspective. We have to kind of understand that, what's going on here. All right. Well, that's it for this one. Talk to you later. Bye.